So, UFC Fight Night, Dariush versus Tsarukyan is tomorrow night in Austin, Texas, and I'm going to be giving you guys my breakdowns and predictions on some of the fights that I'm most excited for. It's a pretty stacked card, for a fight night. It is very stacked. I've heard people saying it's the best fight night of the year. I think that could be true. It's a very stacked card. It has some very good matchups. Main event, co-main event, good matchups. Font, Figgy, great matchup. Brady, Kelvin, great matchup. Clay Guida on the card. Misha Tate on the card. And then, Ihor Potieria versus Bellato, that's a good fight I'm going to be going over. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. The first fight I'm going to be talking about is Rodolfo Bellato versus Ihor Potieria. Now, Rodolfo Bellato fought on the Contender Series twice, losing one of those fights to Vitor Petrino by way of knockout, and that's the only person he's lost to. Both of his losses are to Vitor Petrino, who fights in the UFC. He had a few more wins on the regional scene, got another shot in the Contender Series, and he won that one by second round TKO, and now this is his UFC debut. Bellato has a 91% finishing rate. He's only went to the decision once in his career, and that was a win. He has 6 TKOs and 4 submissions. I would say his best attributes are his hand speed and his power. He has good submission skills as well. His weaknesses are sometimes he's open to counter shots, and his fight IQ is not the best. His Contender Series loss is a good example of that. He tried to do a spinning attack, got countered and finished by Vitor Petrino. Now, Ihor Potieria is coming off of a highlight reel KO loss to Carlos Yolberg. He walked right into Yolberg's famous check hook and paid the price. This was him coming off that win over Shogun Rua. I don't really hold that win in any regard. Shogun Rua was very old, and it was his retirement fight. Other than that, though, Potieria has an 80% finish rate with 20 wins, so he has a lot more experience than Rodolfo Bellato. He's been in the UFC for longer. But this fight, I don't think it'll go the distance. When it comes to betting, I think the best value on this fight would be to bet that it does not go the distance. But in terms of who is going to win, I think that Rodolfo Bellato is going to find the chin of Ihor Potieria, who does not have a great chin, to put it at the very least. And yeah, I think he'll finish him in round 2 with it by way of TKO. There is some chance that Ihor Potieria wins as well, but either way, I do not see this fight going the distance, and I'm going to be picking Rodolfo Bellato to win. So the next fight I'm going to be going over is Sean Brady versus Kelvin Gastelum. Now, this is a very, very interesting matchup in my opinion. Both guys are very skilled. Kelvin Gastelum, he's kind of been on the sidelines for a while outside of that fight with Chris Curtis, but other than that, he's been sort of inactive for a while, kind of in limbo for a bit. And now we finally see him, and he's back at 170, and he looked pretty good on the scales, made weight, no problem, which is a big deal. People were saying he might not make weight. But yeah, I think this is a winnable fight for Kelvin. He has the wrestling to keep this one standing, where I think he'll have the clear advantage over Brady. He has a really good chin, so I don't see Brady hurting him on the feet, and I think he has a power advantage to the point where he'll be able to stun Brady with some of his shots and possibly even find a finish. Brady's ground game is good. His top game is his bread and butter, but the problem is his offensive wrestling is not up to scratch, and his striking is just subpar for the division. You know what I mean? So, when he went up against Belal, a guy who has very good wrestling as well as pretty good striking, Belal was able to stuff the takedown attempts of Brady with relative ease and then kind of just tee off on him on the feet and get a pretty easy TKO win in the second round, I believe. And yeah, I think the problem with Brady is his offensive wrestling game is just not where it needs to be. He has a very good top game. He's very good at when he gets you down, but it's just the act of him getting you down consistently and holding you down. He's not the best at that. He's not the best at setting up his takedowns with his striking. His striking is not very good. When it comes to the fight with Belal, going into that fight, I was really thinking that Belal would beat him because of the striking difference. Brady is just not a good striker, and at least was not. But, that was a long time ago. That was back on the, no, it was over a year ago now. Back on UFC 280, I think it was. Oliveira Makhachev won that card. So it was a while ago now that we haven't seen Brady in the cage. Was his first pro loss, finished by Belal Muhammad. But the big question here is how Kelvin will look, in my opinion. If he has a good weight cut, which he did, and he's in good shape, which he looks to be, then I think that he's going to win this one by decision. I don't think that Brady's going to be able to get him down and then hold him down and work for a submission. I think that Kelvin's going to be able to counter wrestle with Brady, keep the fight standing, and pick him apart on the feet, where I think he'll be able to have a lot of success. The next fight I'm going to be going over is one that I'm also very, very excited for. Rob Font versus Figgy. So this one has potential, fight of the night potential written all over. Both guys have power, great stand-up, but After looking at Font's last loss, which was a very, very dominant loss to Corey Sandhagen, I think that Figgy should really look to use his wrestling in this fight. He has good grappling, so I think he'll be able to get Font down, as Font's takedown defense was exposed as subpar in his fight with Sandhagen. On the feet, I think Figgy will probably have a slight speed advantage because he's coming up from flyweight, but I think Font's going to have a little more pop behind his shots, and his boxing is no joke. He hits really hard for a bantamweight, and while Figgy does hit like a truck for a flyweight, I will have to see if that like big flyweight power equates to big bantamweight power, or if it's just on par with Font, who's a heavy-hitting bantamweight. Other than that, though, Font is a bit one-dimensional. His boxing is very, very good. His boxing and his striking is very, very crisp. It's mostly boxing, though. It's a lot of hands, some elbows, sometimes some kicks, but it's a lot of hands. And other than that, though, his grappling is not very good, especially his defensive grappling. It's really not up to scratch for a guy like Figgy. And I think that if Figgy mixes his takedowns in early, stays aggressive on the feet, I think he will have a lot for Font, maybe too much for Font. And I think Figgy will take this one by decision. I think skill-wise, he's a step ahead of Font, being a former champion. But there's also a chance that Font wins this one because, his striking is dangerous. He hits pretty hard for a bantamweight. And, it's going to be a very entertaining fight. I think both guys are going to be pushing the pressure, trying to get aggressive. But I think that Figgy is a bit more aggressive on the feet, and his grappling is going to be the difference maker in this fight. So my pick for this one is Figgy by decision. Let's get into the next one. The co-main event, Jalen Turner versus Bobby Green. Now, this is a must-win fight for Turner. Despite being on short notice, he's coming off that loss to Hooker, which is a fight many expected him to win. Even myself picked him to win that fight. He was hittable in the fight against Hooker. Hooker had a lot of success on the feet, and there were moments where it looked like he was on the brink of being finished, Turner, when Hooker had him in serious trouble. Green is coming off career-high finishes over Tony Ferguson and Grant Dawson, the latter of which being a one-punch KO stunner that snapped the 20-fight win streak of Dawson's. But, at the end of the day, Green is still an aging vet at 37 years old. So is Hooker when Turner fought him. And Turner, being a rising prospect, should be able to take out Green, short notice or not. Turner should use his range early on, use kicks and long straight shots to keep Green at bay, and not let Green get going on the feet. Possibly even mix in his clinch work, Turner, when they get in close. There's a chance that Turner struggles with the cardio and the pressure from Green, like he did with Hooker, especially on a short notice fight. The cardio might be an issue. But one thing I want to note is Green's style of kind of sitting back and picking apart at you with his boxing. I don't know how much success he's going to have doing that against a guy like Jalen Turner, who has such a large, I think it's a 6-inch reach advantage over Bobby Green. So Bobby Green's kind of sit back style and pick at you with his shots. I don't know how much success he'll be able to have against Turner with that style. I think he's going to have to take risks to get inside against Turner, where Turner will be able to catch him or tie him up in the clinch. I think Turner will win inside the distance, but there's also a good value on Bobby Green. And the odds on Turner are not good. When it comes to betting on this fight, I personally am not gonna be sprinkling on Turner, at least not on his face money line value, because I believe last time I checked he was minus 200 favorite. And while I do think he's gonna win, I don't think it's that clear. I think it's a very close fight where it could go either way. I'm personally gonna pick Turner to win because I think that he's in a bit of a different stage in his career, and he has the youth on his side as well as the reach on his side. So, and he has that finishing ability. So I think that Hooker inside the distance is going to be my pick, and that's going to be his best way to win. If this one goes past the second, I think Bobby Green will probably take it. Without further ado, let's get right into the main event. Beneil Dariush versus Arman Tsarukyan. Very entertaining matchup. Two grapplers that can strike. It's a big one, and it speaks a lot for the division. Because Dariush was on that big win streak, got snapped by Charles, first round finish. Big way to end a win streak like that, and he ended up losing a ton of momentum that it took him a long time to build. And Tsarukyan had a lot of hype before that Gamrot loss. Now he's kind of building that hype back. He still has a lot of hype, but winner of this match is kind of closer to a title shot. One fight, maybe two fights away for a title shot, depending on who wins and how. One thing I wanted to note about this fight is, despite Dariush being almost 10 years older than Tsarukyan and having over double the amounts of UFC fights, he's never been to a fourth or a fifth round in his whole career, even outside the UFC. Arman went all 5 rounds with Gamrot, and he did slow down in the fourth and the fifth round, he was able to knock Gamrot down in the 4th and survive a big back take, and he was also able to defend takedowns in the 5th and get up from bad positions. So it wasn't like he was in the 5th round a little gassed out and got taken down and just gave up. You know, he was still fighting and still had the energy to put up a great fight, even into that 5th round, which that fight, start to finish, was a crazy pace. So that does speak volumes to his gas tank. I think that the first round or two of this fight will be on the feet for the most part. I don't think that Arman's going to get Dariush down too early. You know, in the later rounds, possibly late in the 3rd, he might be able to time a takedown and set one up after making reads. But when they're fresh and early in the bout, I do think that Dariush's takedown defense is going to hold up. On the feet, I think that Dariush has the overall advantage. He does hit harder. I think Arman's a bit faster on the feet, and Arman has a bit of a better chin. But just overall striking, like well-rounded striking game, I do think that Dariush is a bit better. Like Arman has good kicks, but they just overall, I think Dariush is a bit more seasoned and just more experienced on the feet, just well-rounded striking game, defense and offense. If Dariush decides to scramble with Arman, I think that he may find himself in trouble. Even Islam Makhachev has had problems scrambling with Arman. Arman's scrambling game is insane, and he can push the pace and force a scramble like no other. And I think if he's able to do that, he can find a lot of success, even in like the 2nd, 3rd round. But it is a 5-round fight, so he does need to be wary of his cardio. You know, in the Gamrot fight, he was kind of going like pedal to the metal, like going full blast, and ended up gassing out a little bit. He did go not like gassed, but you could just tell by looking at him that he was breathing heavy and that he was feeling the effects of the 5-round fight. But yeah, he did keep that crazy pace with Gamrot, so I do think that his cardio, I don't think his cardio is going to be a big issue. And there is also a chance that Arman's able to catch Dariush on the feet and finish him. You know, he was able to catch Gamrot multiple times in their fight, and, you know, I think that if he's able to catch Dariush with shots like that, he might be able to finish him, even though he wasn't able to finish Gamrot. I'm going to pick Tsarukyan to win this one by a close decision, probably 48-47, maybe 49-46, but I do have to say Dariush has a very good chance at winning, and I don't know, I did want Arman to win this one, but after seeing that video with Bobby Green, I don't know, I'm not too big of a fan of Arman after that one. I lost a good amount of respect for him after I see that video of him, you know, pressing Bobby Green with 4 of his boys and then slapping Bobby Green in the face. You know, I wasn't a big fan of that. But, you know, let's see this fight. I think this fight's going to be a great card. You know, I do want to do a little bit of an honorable mention, and I do want to just talk about for a minute the BKFC main event, Eddie Alvarez versus Mike Perry. I think that one's going to be a banger, but I do think that Mike Perry is going to beat Eddie Alvarez, possibly even finish him. You know, I think it'll be close, but I think that Mike Perry is just a dog, bigger man, fought better guys, looked really good against them, finished MVP, beat the crap out of MVP. Finished Rockhold, beat the crap out of MVP. That was a close one, but he beat the crap out of him in the end. And then, like, Mendez is a 45er. I know he's off the sauce, but he's a lot smaller than Perry. So that one's going to be an absolute banger of a scrap. Can't wait to watch that after the UFC card. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to be pumping out a few more videos. I'll probably make one on Sunday, and then I'm going to make a few more for you guys next week. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.